Yeah.
Okay, trying this again. Can you hear me now?
I sure can. You're a little quiet, but I sure can hear you.
This is going to be interesting. Yeah, we're piecing it together right now. Duct tape and paper clips and everything else to be online right now. Audio's
Lovely.
not working. The agenda might look a little strange with an October date on it, but the content's correct in there.
Mhm. Well, do we have anyone in the room with you other than who I can see with Jared and Lance in the back?
Just us.
Okay. And seeing as there's only four of us here then, and nobody from public or otherwise, we don't really have a quorum. So
I got a message from Austin Stifler just about a minute ago that said he'd be about 10 minutes late finishing up a final, but would join. So I don't
Okay.
know.
Well, in that case, we can table temporarily looking through minutes and approving what we have for July, as well as the notes that we had from September and November, which were not formal meetings, but yeah.
I think there's gonna be a bunch of feedback.
Oh, okay. Wait, well, I was thinking I could mute, but because it's coming from your speaker.
Okay.
Yes, I think that's a good idea, Mike.
Okay, so it's not a formal call to order, but we'll start discussing business now. So Jared, go ahead and for the purpose of whatever the word is for posterity, please read through rules of engagement as well as roll call.
Good afternoon. My name is Jared Allen, Administrative Technician, Lawrence Transit. With me here is Adam Weigel, Transit and Parking Manager. He will work alongside Mike Wazakowski to facilitate the meeting's proceedings. This meeting is being recorded and broadcast on the city's YouTube channel and public access cable channel 25. During the meeting, when you are not participating, please mute yourself by clicking on the microphone icon found in the lower left-hand side of the Zoom menu. In some cases, we may mute or unmute people as needed to minimize distractions during the meeting. Please remember to state your name and title for the benefit of those listening remotely. If you are participating by phone, you can click *6 to unmute your phone. Now I will do roll call. Lance Fay, Austin Stifler,
Not present at the moment.
Mike Wazakowski,
Present.
Foster Spicinger,
Not present.
Alan Ackland,
Present.
Gregory Critchlow,
Not present.
Bill Wilson,
Present.
August Rudisell,
Not present.
Freddie Gitt.
Also not present. Well, that leaves four of us, so we definitely do not have a quorum. Seeing as there's only 5 people on this Zoom call and none of us are members of the public, and seeing Adam, you'd confirm that there is nobody in the room physically present with you other than we can see. There's no one here for communication from the public. I assume no emails or texts, or they would have been included in the agenda. So let's go ahead and table temporarily item C, approving minutes, and proceed to general agenda item number 1, Central Station Ops Plan.
Okay, thank you. I'll bring this up. Okay, showing up okay for everybody?
For me, at least, yes.
So we have been doing about 1,000 things to prepare for Central Station opening on January 2nd. One of those things is development of a formal operational plan. So this work really started because we've been coordinating with the public library and also Parks and Rec, who've both done some work at formalizing some behavior management, essentially, in their respective spaces. The library recently leased the library lawn that's next to the library building so that they could enforce some behavioral issues that they were having challenges with. And Parks and Rec has also been doing some things in parks to try to get behaviors that they don't want to see stopped from happening. So this plan really started with that kind of in mind and trying to dovetail with a lot of the efforts they've already been doing or methods they've been using to get compliance. As we got into it, we realized this being a brand new facility, there were a number of other things that were useful for people to know. Our operating hours, what sort of bike amenities and access people have, and different things. So there's a few other sections in this plan that I'll show you. The bulk of it is related to behavior management and how we'll inform the public that we'll be managing this space. But there are a few other things that are just kind of practical know-how for how the Central Station site will operate. So I'll go through this. Stop me anytime, but I'll also leave time at the end for any thoughts or questions or discussion. So as we get into this, just have the address and a general pictorial layout of what the site does look like. So we've decided which bays each of our routes will be serving around that central platform. Those decisions were made based on how long each of our buses has to lay over. So some routes have less time that they'll be laying over at the Central Station site, like routes 11 and 12. So those routes are closest to the building, facilitate drivers being able to get to and from restrooms as needed. Regional services will be north of those bays, Greyhound and Ride KC, the K10 connector up to Johnson County. We have a circulation for automobiles to pick up and drop off folks. Most likely, people will be doing that as it relates to the regional services, but they may be doing that with local services as well. An example might be that someone's family member uses a local bus service, but they drive to Kansas City. So they might drop them off on the way, catch a local route. So this just kind of shows what the site layout is. We list which routes will serve Central Station and link to that site. Our lobby hours, so the hours at the building will be open to the general public, will be Monday through Friday, 8 to 8, and Saturday from 8 to 2. So city staff will be able to cover our normal city hours, which is 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. The evening hours on weekdays, as well as the Saturday hours, will be covered by our TransDev partners, our coordinated service provider. We worked that into our revised contract with them, our next 5-year contract, for them to provide some extra staffing so that we could have our building open more closely matched to when local services operate. We still won't be able to cover that entire period. We have buses during the school semester that run until about 10:30 at night, and on Saturdays they run until about 8 p.m. So there will be some periods of time where buses will be operating, but the general public won't be able to access the building. And that's just the reality of kind of what we can afford staffing-wise right now. Worth noting that at all times, the bus drivers will have access to their break room and restrooms, and staff will have access to the admin portion of the building. But it's really just that front lobby that we have to have someone staffed there, people to be able to use. Building will be closed a number of holidays. Some of these days we do operate bus service, so there will be some kind of interesting days where we are running bus service but don't have staffing to operate in the building. We list some of the amenities that are available on the platform, so out where the bus bays are at, as well as inside the lobby. Number of different things going on. Happy to answer questions about any of these. But there are, plenty of amenities out on the platform and inside the building. Customer service, Jared sitting next to me will be our person up at the customer service window, so helping answer people's questions about routes, about detours, about how they can access the regional services. We'll have a person able to help front door of building. Our Lost and Found currently operates out of the maintenance facility, which is out on North Iowa or Timber Edge Road, but North Iowa, kind of up by Berry Plastics and a few other large businesses up there. That's been a somewhat challenging place for people to go recover their hat or gloves or wallet. It's not as convenient as the center of town, so we'll be moving our Lost and Found operations to Central Station, and people can pick up anything they've lost there. There are a few different bicycle amenities that the city has not yet had at any other facility around town. So we wanted to note those and let people know that we have them. So obvious ones that people have seen are just your typical bicycle racks, and we do have those outside as well as inside. We have some bicycle lockers, which are outdoor units that allow people to park their bike, particularly if they're using regional services, but potentially if they're also going to campus, KU's campus all day. It would be a place to store your bike out of the weather if it's raining, snowing, something like that. And it's accessible when the building's closed. So an example might be a student who is riding their bike to connect to the bus at Central Station and won't be able to get back until after our building's closed. They'd be able to get their bike out of that locker and have it be dry if it was rainy that day. Safety and security section, this is where we'll get into some of the behavioral stuff, and I'm sure there'll be maybe some thoughts and questions about this. So we do have 24-hour surveillance of the site and inside the facility. We won't be monitoring that, and we won't have someone sitting 24 hours a day watching those, but if something is broken overnight or vandalized overnight, something like that, we'll have the ability to follow up with cameras. And of course, while we're there during the day, it'll be a way to sure everything is going all right throughout the site. Clarifying the police response to the site, this is KU endowment property, but the city owns all of the improvements, owns and maintains all the improvements. And so Lawrence Police Department will be first responder to the site if we do have an emergency that we need to call emergency services for. The KU PD office is right across Crestline, it's right across the street, and Lawrence Police Department and KU PD are in radio contact. So if they are, if we do need a response that needs to be 1 minute quicker or 2 minutes quicker, LPD has the ability to coordinate with KU PD on something like that. So this code of conduct section is what I would call the bulk of the document, maybe 2.5 pages here. And we really were able to mirror a lot of what the public library had done and bring in some of what Parks and Rec had done. The primary purpose of this is just to have clarity with folks about what we expect as far as behavior on the site and what consequences will look like, because it really is important that Central Station, all of our buses, everywhere be, safe, comfortable places for everyone to go. With fare free, we're encouraging everybody to get on a bus, and that includes, we have younger riders, kids who are in middle school. We need everybody stepping onto a bus or into the Central Station site to feel safe in those places. So this is really laying out procedures and expectations for what we expect on the site. don't want it to feel unwelcoming, do want there to be clear kind of rules around what we expect. So the general idea is we have 4 different levels of behavioral issues that we might face, that we contemplate facing. And under each of these, we list what the consequence would be. So there's a lot of the lower level offenses that we certainly will try to just ask people for compliance before we're, moving towards suspending someone from services and that type of thing. But repeated breaking of these type of rules would lead to that type of consequence. So this first section is some of the what we consider the lower level things we might anticipate. This will be a no smoking site throughout the site as well as in the building. Generally behavior that disrupts others or preventing access to the amenities on the site. Someone's not allowing someone to sit on a bench or be in a shelter because of storing belongings there or anything else. This gives us something we can point to while we're trying to encourage people to do the behaviors that we want them to do. This moves up into more serious offenses, and the type of consequence increases to multiple month suspensions potentially if someone is threatening violence or has made their way into staff-only areas in a way that's not just a mistake. We will be keeping a close eye on camping and storing materials, on the platform, in the bus shelters, in the bike lockers, in some of the wooded areas around the site. Those are areas we anticipate needing to ask people for compliance. And so this talks about some of those things. Levels 3 and 4 get into some of the more serious things that potentially could happen. At this point, we're talking about physical fights, serious theft or damage. Certainly we've had a lot of challenges with bus shelter glass breaks over this last year. It's been a particularly high year for that. In all of those cases, we often or almost never have video evidence of any of, what happened in those cases. On this site, we will. So, things that cost the city and transit thousands of dollars and, make the experience less comfortable for the rest of riders will lead to suspensions of a greater degree. So certainly all of these things can escalate to the point of a police call. Hopefully we can, there's been some encouraging feedback from library staff since they have done the lease of the library lawn and used staff to ask people to comply with some of their rules. They've had good success with people complying. But certainly if in some cases, we're not going to try to put staff in danger to stop somebody from doing something and may need to call police in some instances. There may be a chance that we would need to ban someone on an indefinite level. We would hope that some of the shorter suspensions get the message across about what sort of behaviors we expect people to avoid. But we do want that to be there in case we have repeat offenders or folks who are really just causing challenges. We don't anticipate a large number of people pushing it this far. That is something we're thinking about just to make sure the new facility and encouraging everyone to use the bus, that we're creating a safe environment, a welcoming environment. So that's really the bulk of what the operations plan is. I'm happy to answer any questions about any of this, any concerns. I guess I'll reiterate our hope and goal is not that Central Station or the buses or anywhere else is like the place where we're constantly walking around telling people no, or a place that feels unwelcoming. But, some of our experience with other department heads led us to think it really was a good idea to get some rules in place with some structure some of these other public spaces have really been able to dial back some bad behaviors that we hope to keep in line from the beginning. Happy to answer any thoughts, questions, concerns.
Thanks, Adam. Only big question I have right now, since you're on this page, is that this looks very reminiscent of the code of conduct that we talked about earlier in the year. Is there anything that was omitted from that or added to that when you constructed this?
That is a great question. So you're referencing the rider suspension policy on
Correct,
buses that this group looked at. And at some point, I think we're going to need to dovetail those two things together. With Central Station opening in a few weeks, we aren't going to be able to quickly do that work. I will say they don't conflict. There's not items on this list that lead to very long suspensions, but the same action on a bus would not. You know, they're very much in line with that. But we do probably need to get ourselves to one list and one suspension form that applies to buses, to Central Station, to our services in general. And that's work that we'll have to do next year.
Thank you. First, Austin, thank you for attending. And since we don't have members of the public on the call or in the room, do any of you have comments, questions, concerns about this proposed plan? Seeing nobody come off mute, that's probably a good sign. Thank you, Adam, for putting this together. Yeah, seems pretty straightforward. The only thing that kind of concerns me a little bit is the idea that the lobby isn't necessarily going to be open during full route hours, but I also understand that, you know, that's more manpower that we have to pay for people to be available than we may have funding for, and you got to pick and choose your battles sometimes on that. So
Yeah, I mean, we could certainly, like, our availability to staff it fully would be to reduce service hours in some area to afford it. So we're just right now not willing to make that sort of decision.
Service is more important.
I didn't mention in my presentation, but I'll mention that a number of these items, especially some of the behaviors we expect to probably encounter more often, things like smoking, things like storage of personal materials in areas like bus shelters and bike lockers. Some of this will also be supplemented with signage on the site. So, you know, this particular document will house on our website, but I highly doubt all of our riders are going to go to our website and read the code of conduct before they start using our services. So we'll be supplementing this work with signage. We will have a PA system at the Central Station site that allows us to push out like automated messages on the hour, let's say, that can remind people of some of the behaviors we want them to avoid. You know, welcome to Central Station. This is a no smoking facility and site. Thanks for riding Lawrence Transit, that sort of thing. So this gives us something to point to if we need to kind of go through some of the suspension steps. But as far as the public knowing how they should and shouldn't act in this public space, we'll be supplementing and guiding them through signage and audio. And certainly the first month of service, we'll have staff out walking on the platform a lot, talking with people, redirecting as needed, try to get kind of an early baseline of what we want.
It's definitely too late for this right now, but it might be helpful in terms of the map that we publish for people to get a copy of some sort of brief version of the rules or the code of conduct inside of there. Obviously, we can't do it for this coming year because that stuff's long been printed, and it would be way too expensive to do it. But maybe going forward in 2025 or the next release, whatever it is, it might help to have a short page that talks about code of conduct and that.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I think so. Our ride guide has had a long list of bullets of prohibited activities and different things. It's not. I mean, it's legible, but it's a very long list. So I think to your point, Mike, and this is also a long list, just broken into 4 boxes.
Mhm.
But we might try to find a graphic, easy way in the ride guide for people to quickly understand what is expected of them and our services. A little bit of graphics goes a long way when you're giving people a list of 30 things to not do.
I agree. Okay, last opportunity. Ptac members, any comments, questions, concerns before we move on? Okay, hearing nothing. Thank you, Adam. Now that we do have an official quorum with Lance, myself, Alan, Austin, and Bill in attendance, I'd like to take the tabled item off and look at the minutes that we have for, oh gosh, it was July, and notes for September and November. I don't know if anyone is going to have meaningful feedback at this point, given that it's now been almost 6 months since the July meeting. But I'll offer 3 opportunities for anyone to review what we discussed at the July meeting, as well as October, November, or September and November. And assuming that no one has amendments, we will approve them. So first call. Any members here have amendments offered to the minutes from July or the notes from September and November? Second call, does anyone have any amendments to offer to these minutes and these notes? Last call. Does anyone have any amendments to offer? Okay, hearing none. Minutes and notes are approved by unanimous consent. Next on the agenda then is item E. That is, if any members have future gender work session items to add, feel free to bring them up now. If you don't, you can email Adam and have them brought under advisement for the January session. As always, you can bring it up now, of course. That would fit under other items. So I'll give you an opportunity to think. Okay. Just remember, bringing items up for our agenda is always on the table.
We got Lance would have had a question.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Lance. I didn't hear.
As we get ready for all the route changes, what are some things that are being done to help riders on those first couple of days? Are we going to have some extra people out there? Are new guides going to be available, or what steps are being taken to help? Because that's going to be a huge transition and confuse a lot of people at first.
Yeah, able to hear that online okay?
I could hear.
Yes. Okay. So, good question. So, we did a lot of outreach back in October, and we mostly, a lot of people engaged with us. We were showing them routes and routes and schedules. There were a lot of folks who really wanted the ride guide to be in hand. It kind of felt like that was the piece of information they needed to really engage with us. So those will be, we'll have some amount printed by this Friday, that's my understanding, and we'll be able to start distributing those and talking with people specifically about route changes. We will have a lot of people, we'll have the number of people we have on staff distributed between the downtown station and central station platform, talking with people, talking with riders in those first few days. There are preview of route changes on an app. I don't think we've pushed that out through the current app yet, but you can essentially plan your future trip and see what it would look like right now. So we've done those amount of things. I think you're right. At this point, it's going to be, practically, it's going to be a lot of talking with people in those first couple of weeks to make sure they're getting where they need to go and using the routes effectively. But we should have ride guides in the next week that are being handed out to folks, and that I'm sure will start a lot of conversations. I know Jared's been fielding calls as well. People prepare. News article came out last week when we put out the press release about changes, and so I think that spurred a lot of people to reach out as well.
Good question. Thank you, Lance. Any other questions? Okay. Next on the agenda then is transit staff items. Looks like there are two things you want to bring up, Adam.
Yeah, I guess 3, but my bullets are kind of strange here. So just a note, and given we've had some quorum challenges, I think I will probably more formally start doing a quorum call before each meeting so that everybody at least is reminded about the call. But as we move into next year, we will have chair and vice chair nominations, which we typically try to do in January. We'll have on my last item here, so we might. That's all right. So just a heads up that we'll be doing chair and vice chair elections, and if you're interested, please be thinking about that. Central Station, we talked about with the operations plan, but I'll just mention that today was really the first day that staff is now working out of Central Station. We have a huge bulletin board full of deadlines and install dates of all sorts of things. We will not have our formal office furniture until about the middle of January, but we are working on folding tables, and all of our computer equipment works and connects to the network. So we're over there working and getting a sense of how that building functions for us day to day, which is exciting. And I wanted to mention downtown as well. So I presented to this group last month about what our site selection process for improvements downtown will hopefully look like, and made some edits to that presentation, and we'll be presenting that to the City Commission on December 19th. So if you're interested and have time, please tune in or watch the recording after. I think that'll be a good, pretty excited about the type of plan we laid out. I think the approach should let us in a more healthy way bring in the business voices who were challenged by some of what we were doing last time around in 2021. I think we can do it in a way that feels more like we're working together this time. I think we have some good options still in the downtown area other than the parking lots we looked at the last time around. So take a look at that presentation if you have time, and that'll be the start of about a year-long process to choose a site that we will hopefully be designing and constructing in 2025. As a reminder, it's not the same as Central Station. We're not building another building, but we are trying to get sawtooth bus bays for better operations, weather protection canopies, seating, wind protection, and a restroom, kind of an independent restroom for our drivers, so they always have a place to go. So those are kind of the elements we're looking for when it comes to downtown improvement. That's what I got.
That means it's not going to be on the consent agenda, right? It's a regular agenda item.
Yeah, this will be a work session item. So this is a strategic plan connected city update. So almost every city commission meeting has a strategic plan update. from one of the 5 outcome areas. And so that date is for the Connected City outcome area, which is mostly about transportation. And yeah, this project is one of the next upcoming things. So we're giving them a preview of what that will look like. There will be also work sessions do not have action to them. Commission members will not be voting on anything, but they can give us some feedback and thoughts on the presentation. We'll be showing them a draft steering committee list and steering committee scope of work that we will ask for action in January. So the December meeting will be kind of a preview. They can give us anything they'd like to see edited, and then January be able to hopefully say yes to it, and so we can be off and going.
Thank you.
Probably about a 20-minute presentation, and I would imagine about 20 minutes of questions. Probably what that.
That'll be pretty healthy then. I wonder if there's gonna be a lot of public input though. In that.
Hard to say. I know we'll try to keep our, we've been doing a version of that presentation to the Chamber and Downtown Lawrence Inc. So we'll certainly let those folks know so that if they want to watch it or comment, they can. But since there's no decisions being made, not sure if we'll see much public comments or not.
Okay. Well, with that, that closes out our agenda. Next full meeting for this group will be January next year, January 8th. So look forward to seeing you all then.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
That'd be all.